Hello there. My name's Mark, aka the Canadian Jedi, and this is Holocron Chronicles episode 109. Man, we're getting up there. I am joined, as always, by my trusty co-pilot through this galaxy far, far away, Charlie Carden. Charlie, how you doing, man? It's been a while.
When was the last time we even did the show? You were gallivanting in Florida at the Galaxy's Edge and everything. My goodness.
It was, yeah.
So here we are back on terra firma. And in the time in between, we had a great interview with an Imagineer who worked on the Star Wars Star Cruiser hotel, Annie Crocker, that is going to air in just a few short weeks here on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon, which, what a great segue. Holy cow. Because we always like to kick our show off talking about that, though we're going to get into talking about Star Wars Celebration. We're going to get into talking about the first 3 episodes of season 2 of Andor. But first, these wonderful people on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon squad over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite do get it all. Exclusive shows, early programs, ad-free shows, cool Discord benefits for as little as, get this, free for 7 days, 50% off your first month, and as little as $2 a month to go forward. So, oh my goodness, all this great entertainment for this minuscule amount of bucks. It's absolutely nuts. But these folks, they're clued in. My buddy Derek Trevelyan, I call him the figure dude. Francie, who is my wife's hairdresser. My wife's getting her hair done tomorrow, first time in a year. So she's excited. And I'll be gone. I won't be able to do that husband thing because I'm gone for work. I won't be able to come say, oh my God, honey, how beautiful your hair is. I'll have to marvel that in a photograph. Mr. Luke Laura, the Xbox expansion pass, and my awesome uncle Tim down there in South Haven, Michigan. Also joining us, John Sedorf, Brendan Myers, Corey in HD, Matthew Keel, my buddy Kurt Krug, who helps us out with all of those great interviews that we've had, our friend Tanya Lee down in Alabama, and our new people, Chipotle Bear, Famous Seamus, Jay Newport 007, Cam the Movie Man, and Brian Osserman, a.k.a. Darth Prozac. And we're going to circle back to Chipotle Bear because what we do for all of the folks who join us in the Patreon level, as on each individual program, they get something special assigned to them. So Chipotle Bear, you're on the Star Wars show, so you're going to get a Star Wars. I know we do a Star Trek race and a job. I can't remember if we do if we do the same thing here. I think it's a race and a job.
Yeah, we've done different things, I think. We haven't been awesome about this part of it on this show. So if anyone in our Patreon is listening right now and we skipped you or missed you somehow,
let
us know. We'll figure it out. But right now we are starting. We're going to jump in with Chipotle Bear. And I think Star Wars race and job, I think that sounds pretty good. So what do you have in mind for Chipotle Bear?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to pick out. I mean, if he's a bear, he is a Wookiee, a huge one. And his job is, because of his fabulous linguistic skill, he's the only Wookiee you've ever met that speaks Galactic Standard, or what we would call English. So he's just a regular dude, accent free, or maybe maybe he's got a little bit of a lint. I take that back because it's almost accent free. His accent is vaguely Canadian somehow, Mark. I don't know how that works, but he is a Canadian Wookiee. And as he's got that same, great disposition, mannerism that you wonderful Canadians have. So he is the captain of a pleasure ship sailing the seas of Canto Bight. Look at that. And he's a Wookiee with a great attitude. It's amazing.
I like it. You know what? I had a different choice because I was focusing on the Chipotle part. So I was trying to find something hot, spicy, but I missed the bear. And I think you're right. So I'm going to agree with you on the Wookiee. I think that's a great choice. But I am going to change my answer. What I would go with this. And I'm thinking a Wookiee raised by Deveronians.
Ooh.
So he has an affinity for some spicy things. Deveronians are fireproof, as we saw in The Mandalorian.
Right.
Big devil-looking guys. Mr. Krabs, I believe, or something. Yeah, played that. Yeah. So a Wookiee raised by Deveronians. who enjoys the spicier things and became a chef. So you can go for the hottest food this side of the Outer Rim at the Deveronian Wookiees eatery, and
Where
that's
where is this? Where is it located?
the opposite side of Mustafar. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
as far from Vader's castle as possible.
Cold
Um,
Stafar, where they have seasons.
I don't know. Do they have seasons on Mustafar? Is it
I
just a
don't think
whole lava
so.
planet?
It's that's what it looked like every time they've ever shown it. So yeah,
It's see that's the bad thing about Star Wars is for the most part they visit planets, but we only ever see like a tiny
right,
section.
right,
It's like you visit Earth and you land pick a place. You land in
yeah,
Antarctica, and suddenly Earth is a snow planet, and it's like, well,
right.
there's
It's
other
just
biomes here.
yeah. There's just one
Go
season.
around a
Hoth,
little,
yeah,
you know.
Tatooine, Mustafar, Endor.
Yeah,
The forest moon of Endor is just a
yeah,
forest. It's not like there's
yeah.
also
And I
any
get that one because
water.
it's a
Yeah,
moon. It
yeah.
might be a little tinier. You might have, a couple of just random, but um, yeah, maybe the rest of Mustafar is just lovely this time of year.
Yeah, right.
And just so
Seasons.
happens that Vader's castle is in a particularly lava-ish kind of part.
Lava-ish. It's bad lava season.
Yeah, yeah, bad lava season going on right now. So
Bad
Chipotle
lava
Bear,
season.
there's your Star Wars race and profession from
Right,
Charlie and I. We'll, like I said, we'll keep going with the other newbies. But if we did miss you and you're listening
right.
to this, let us know. We'll hit you up on the next episode.
You got it.
Um,
We'll have a bonanza out of it. So, well, we've obviously missed a lot having not been on, but Star Wars Celebration over in Japan came and
yeah,
went. That was a couple of weeks ago, middle of April. And, a lot of stuff happened. I was kind of gloom and doom headed in. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a lot of this would be great or
yeah.
remember when. And to be honest with you, cards on the table, I've said this in a lot of different places, including over on SFU. I get a little cringy when I tune in and it's like Star Wars cliches. Like I tuned in, a guy was talking to Alan Tudyk and it was just some
Mhm.
head dipshit guy. And he was like, well, you got to say the famous Star Wars thing. I have a bad feeling about this. And people go, and I'm like, that's not interesting. Tell me something interesting. I'm an interviewer myself. I'm a
Yeah.
journalist. Always have been. Ask him something interesting. So I was kind of bummed out about that. So I
Mm.
got I derived more interest out of the actual big picture of what came out of everything. So what about you? Where did you were you still you were on the go when this was happening? You were there in Disney, so you probably didn't
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Bits and pieces, you're waiting in lineups and stuff and you're crashing in the hotel at the end of the day. So I check my phone, try to keep up with a little bit, but for the most part, yeah, I was still kind of all into the Disney stuff at that point. But there were a few really cool announcements or things shown
Definitely.
off.
Yeah,
Um, Star Wars Zero Company stands out to me. A new video game coming out set
yeah.
during the Clone Wars seems like a cool thing. The only downside of that one is the type of game that it is. It's a turn-based tactical game. They can be very tedious, in my opinion. Sometimes they're
Mhm.
done right. Sometimes it moves along at a really great pace. And other times I find them just kind of moving like a snail rolling a log uphill. It's
You're right.
just, so depending on it looks intriguing, but I won't hold my breath too much. I think the big one out of this was Star Wars Starfighter, Ryan
Oh,
Gosling
absolutely. Yeah,
coming theatrical,
and I made the
Sean Levy.
I made the point, and I hated all these articles still link back to X. I hate that anybody's still using X. So it's like Star Wars,
Yeah.
move your shit over to Blue Sky. We want to see it over there. But I made the point over just talking to people in general and probably on SFU as well. This is the first film that is being led by an established Hollywood superstar actor. Established. You know what I mean? Other mo-
Absolutely. Yeah.
other movies were filled with actors that, hey, I know that guy, but it's not like if Brad Pitt came along and did Star Wars. This is
Yeah.
just like that. This is like, oh, this is a people who say I love Ryan Gosling.
Mhm.
I've always kind of ignored Star Wars, but this has to do with, fighter planes and stuff. And I love Top Gun. I'm going to go see this movie. So it seems like a solid recipe for success. And also, yeah, so it's got a drop date. And again, you feel like when they stand this solidly on the rock, that this is when they give it a date, it's not in production. It's really honest to God going down. And this would be for
Mhm.
the summer movie season 2 years from now in 2027, Labor Day weekend, or excuse me, I was mess up. Well, Labor Day. What? It's not Labor Day weekend for us because that's in
Oh,
September, but it's our
yeah.
Memorial Day weekend. Sorry, which is
May 28th.
yeah, which is typically very, very big movie weekend because it is the tail end of the typical school year for school kids, and it's a 3-day weekend, chance for people to go out to the movies if they so choose.
Mhm.
And then we got more buzz about one of next summer's biggest movies, which is going to be The Mandalorian and Grogu,
Yeah.
including some footage that it was funny when I was talking about this on the main show with Todd. I had caught this footage and he had not. And I think, Mark, you and I probably talked about this over chat. Did you ever end up catching up with that bootleg footage that I described to you?
Yes, I did see
Yes.
some of the things that came out of this. Yes.
Yes, just Mando. You're seeing this long rolling shot of what you're assuming is the inside of, I'm thinking, an an AT-AT, if I'm not mistaken. And the back door opens, and here comes Mando just going pew pew, throwing a knife,
Dude,
kicking a dude in the nuts, just absolutely going
one
wild.
man
And
army.
they're dressed as snow troopers, so you figured it's in a snow trooperish environment. But my goodness. So we got that from that. We also got to see and learn about what Weaver's role will be in that film. We saw her photographed and her dressed in the classic orange X-wing jumper suit, of which I happen to own one myself, which I hope to wear at the next Star Wars celebration in 2027 in
Whew.
Los Angeles. That's a trip that April and I are planning. I love LA.
S-
We loved going there a couple of years ago when we went on our first Star Trek cruise. I got to see a tiny fraction of it, and since then,
mm,
through the coming and going of doing things here in the podcast, I've met a lot of LA people, interviewed
Yeah,
them, and Star Wars, Star Trek people. So would love to think I could bump into one of them in an event like this. I think that'd
yeah,
be awesome.
for sure.
So yeah, so I'm kind of fired up about that. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome.
And it says here that it's the first time that Star Wars Celebration has been in LA since 2006. That is a long, long
Wow.
time. Yeah,
Wow.
20 years by the time that drops. So, what else?
Amazing.
What else kind of tickled your fancy?
Star Wars stuff on Meta Quest. I love VR. I love the Star Wars games. Lately I've been super, and I just talked about this on co-op mode. I've been super into Star Wars pinball
Oh,
on my
okay,
Meta Quest. And
nice.
they're coming out with a pod racing, I want to say kind of sim, because it's not just pod racing. You're also working on the pod racers and repairing and upgrading things. So it's like almost a mechanic sim with a bit of pod racing thrown in there.
Yeah,
Seems to use the mixed reality of the Quest 3 and the 3S really cool. So you could kind of see your environment, see, if I'm using mine in the kitchen here where I'm sitting, I could
yeah,
have the game environment, the pod race playing on my table that's in front of me. And I could still see my kitchen, still interact with people in here and whatever. But then there's something overlaid on my kitchen, or there might be an actual, a pod racer sitting in my living room somewhere that I'm going up and tinkering to.
so it's like
It's some neat stuff.
it's like Pokemon Go. You're like pointing it around, and
Yeah,
it's
essentially, yeah.
wow. Okay,
Except you're viewing it through a
okay,
headset, so it's even more in your face and engaging.
yeah.
Um, so that one looks pretty cool. That's Star Wars Beyond Victory. Um, but yeah, there were a few things. I just started Star Wars Outlaws. That's another video game,
Oh
and
yeah,
Hondo Onaka. They debuted a trailer here for an addition to that game called The Pirate's Fortune. I'm a big
yeah.
Hondo fan. There was some good news. There was some great stuff. Right now, I again talked about this on co-op mode last week, but it started now. When I talked about it, it was upcoming. This new season of Fortnite is all Star Wars
Oh
stuff.
yeah, that's awesome.
Um, it's great. I got my first victory royale yesterday, 2 days ago. after it launched on Thursday or Friday, whatever. So every time you get a Victory Royale, every season there's a different umbrella, which is basically a glider that you use
Okay.
after you jump as you're floating down to the island wherever you're going to land to battle everyone else. If you are the number one victor out of 100 people, you get a special umbrella. I've got quite the collection of them over the years I've been playing. This one is the Death Star, or like a cross section of the Death Star, like the umbrella, but it's got, Death Star, like the trenches and the big circle and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
instantly a new favorite umbrella in my collection. But the
Awesome.
season's very cool. They brought lightsabers back. It's neat. So lots of good stuff coming at a Celebration.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
was I was I was happy, as
mhm.
opposed to just being like, is it going to be a rehash? But they, because Celebration is every 2 years, so they have to plan it right, And I will admit I ended up catching a whole lot less of it, but the news that came out of it, as far as I'm concerned, is much more significant. It's not
Yeah.
just, hey, remember when, or people waving their lightsabers in the air. It's like, hey, we're moving things forward, that we're announcing all these different multimedia projects, these things that are actually happening.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it was very, very exciting stuff, which leads us into, and of course there's quite a bit of talk and interview even with the people who are in Andor season 2, which is what we're going to jump
Be-
into talking about.
Before that, you just mentioned new lightsabers. I've got to show off one of the things from my trip
But of
because
course,
I finally got my favorite lightsaber ever.
in the fancy
This
case.
is Gunji's lightsaber from Galaxy's Edge. I love it so much. It came in this little box. This is how it, I bought it and it came with this box, but it's so great. It's my favorite lightsaber design ever. It is a wooden Wookiee lightsaber. It's not real wood. I know there are some lightsaber manufacturers now that are finally doing them in real wood. I talked to one of them about this specific design, and the cost is understandable, but high.
Excessive. Okay.
Excessive. Not, I don't think excessive in terms of like, I can't, that's definitely not worth it. They're using real wood. I get it. Every single one of them is a custom made real wood, real metal. It's a statement piece. If you want this from, from something like All Sabers or something like that,
Right.
that's the people I talk to about it.
Yeah.
Um, it is really, really nice, but especially after a big Disney trip, the cost prohibitive for
Where
me.
you're seeing
So
a lot of
this one was much easier for my
I
wallet to
I
handle.
definitely remember when I was in optical, which I was for a couple of years. I was a lens rep, that I
Mhm.
was in a shop, and it wasn't even my territory. It was down in Ohio, a very specialty shop in the Cleveland area. That there was a vendor. And this might have actually been in one of my shops. It was in one of my shops, Lake Orion, Michigan, Detroit area, where someone had a literal set of frames carved from wood, and it was
Wow.
like very unique, but also very easy to break and very impossible to repair. But an acquisition is only worth as much as someone is willing to pay for it. So it's either really expensive and useless, or it's excuse me, it's right
Bless
on
you.
the money.
Yeah.
It's right on the money.
And
So that's cool.
and
Good deal.
that's,
Yeah.
like I said, reasonable for the the craftsmanship of the lightsaber that they're selling.
Right. Yeah.
If you're like me and Gunji is one of, if not your favorite lightsaber, definitely worth
Mhm.
it. Like from a design perspective and what you're getting versus the 150 or 160 that I paid for this one. I can't remember at the
Right.
moment. Um, but like it came in the nice little carrying box. It's got some heft to it. It's nice when it
Yeah.
lights up. This one only does green because it's accurate to the character. The
Hmm.
ones that most of the shops are selling are the usual RGBX or
Yeah.
Profi sabers or whatever,
Right.
Xeno blades, so they can change colors and
Yeah.
do the rainbow
Yeah. Yeah.
effects and all that kind of shit. Um, but this one, as far as like I'm concerned and what I need it for, is definitely it's good
What you
enough.
need?
It looks
What
it
what what
looks
what
like
you need?
wood.
what you need it
Um,
for, which is simply to enjoy it in your home. Unless,
exactly.
right.
So you can see the one that I built a few years ago is right behind
Uh-huh.
me, and that
Uh-huh.
was inspired by this one with the wood, and now I have the one that it's inspired it. So, um,
Excellent.
good enough for me. But if you are looking, there are several places, and I'm not endorsed to say this or anything else, but like All Sabers has a great actual wooden Gunja saber. So
Wow.
check them out.
Totally
Um,
awesome.
if that's what you're looking for. But yeah, I'm super happy about that. And I don't know if you noticed, but I've got a new mug as well, a
I
Mythosaur
saw
mug,
I saw that when we were talking
and
to Andy Crocker.
and
Absolutely.
that's one of my new collectibles as well. I don't have anything else nearby, so yeah, now we can move on to Andor after I've geeked out a little bit about
I like it.
my
I
trip to
will
Star Wars Land.
and I'll take a sidebar before we do that. Uh, Kind of drawing inspiration from something you did last year on May the 4th. April and I did a Star Wars trivia session at my local watering
Oh yeah,
hole brewery, Vivant, right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I've been a patron for many, many years. Struck up a conversation with one of my servers several months ago, mentioned that April and I enjoyed doing trivia and have dabbled with the thought of doing it. We're actually doing a Star Trek trivia in Metro Detroit in a couple of weeks here. And they brought us on board for the cost of food and beverage for the evening. We ran 2 sessions that only had 3 teams in it, but we had fun coming up with the questions.
that's
We
great.
decked ourselves out in the Jedi robes that April made for the 2 of us last year for a photo shoot. And
Nice.
I thought of it because I wore my lightsaber, which is a relatively ish guardian saber, which is kind of my
Mm.
preference, but did not have the blade with me. Obviously, I did not have it and was swinging it around. I simply wore that big heavy clunker on my belt, and it swung back and forth, smacking me in the leg because they're so heavy. There's so much heft to them.
Yeah.
But it was a good time, and I think they liked
Awesome.
having us. And I think we'll probably end up doing it again next year. Hopefully, we can grow it to a little bit of a bigger thing. But yeah, it was a good time. It's nice to be out there and celebrate the life on the very made up Star Wars holiday of May 4. But it's good times. It's good
I
times,
love how
and we'll have a movie next year to talk about. So that's very exciting.
yeah, I love how it's taken off.
Yeah.
And there's the debate today of, is it Revenge of the Fifth, which is when we're recording this, or Revenge of the
Right.
Sixth? What's your personal preference? Do you have one?
Between those two,
Mm-hmm.
Revenge of the Fifth sounds more normal to me. But
Okay.
here's the contrast with that. It's also Cinco de Mayo, which,
Yeah.
April had a voucher for DoorDash or something. So we got Mexican food in for dinner. That was our big deal. But that rolls off the tongue a little bit more easily. But yeah, Revenge of the sixth, fifth. I'm going to stick with May the 4th myself. I think that makes sense. You get, that people get more excited about that. So I think
Mm-hmm.
if you got to pick one, I think you should kind of go with the original because it seems to be more
Yeah.
accepted by society, as it will. So
I
there you go.
did see something. So for me, it doesn't really matter either way. I'll take as many Star Wars celebration days as I can. So if you want to
Yeah.
do Revenge of the Fifth or Revenge of the Sixth, do both. Screw it. I don't care. I do respect that Cinco de Mayo can stand on its own, and then you can do Revenge of the Sixth. So you give it like Star Wars
Right.
Day, Cinco de Mayo, boom, Revenge of the Sixth. I do
Right.
like that.
Right.
However, I stumbled upon something today that I thought was fantastic.
Oh my.
It's a full week. May the 4th be with you. There's always a bigger fifth. Revenge of the Sixth. I am the 7th instead of I am the Senate. I find your lack of 8th disturbing. A 9 addition to my collection. Celebrate
Oh
all
God.
things Grievous and lightsabers.
Just
And it's treason 10.
keep digging. Keep dig. Oh my God. That's, there's inside baseball and then there's inside the baseball. It's the stitches on the baseball.
I loved that someone wrote out a full week of Star Wars Day puns, and they're all more ridiculous than the last.
And if somebody is out
It's
there
amazing.
celebrating it, so much the better.
That's
So
it.
much
Yeah,
better.
exactly.
All right.
I'll celebrate Star Wars every day you can. But yeah, let's move on to Andor season
All right.
2, episodes 1 to 3.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will do these one at a time since there's so much to talk about. But episode 1 is aptly titled 1 Year Later. This is directed by Ariel Kleinman, Tony Gilroy handling the writing chores. All 3 of these episodes dropped on April 22nd of 2025. It is now 1 year after the Ferrix uprising, which ended season 1. Cassian is impersonating an Imperial test pilot in order to steal a prototype of an awesome ship, the TIE Avengers. A lot of Avengers going on these days. My goodness. It's a good title. When he attempts to delivery to a jungle planet, he is ambushed by a rogue band of squabbling gorillas. That's gorilla with you. But really, a squabbling gorilla, if it was just gorillas, you think it'd be like Gorilla Grodd from like The Flash. That'd be pretty sweet. They are called the Maya Pei Brigade, which I'm forgetting what the significance of it is, but I'm sure we'll get into it. Over on an agricultural planet, Mina Rao, Bix Brasso, Willimon, and it's Bimo. What do we call him? I always just hear him called B.
B2.
B2 emo. B2 emo. Let's call him B. Fear detection by, now these are obviously, that's Andor's crew from the first season, if you didn't know. Fear detection by the Empire while in the undocumented employ of a local farmer. This is a little too close to home right now here in the US of A. Bix suffers from PTSD caused by Dr. Gorst's torture at the end of the previous season. Over on Chandrila, Mon Mothma prepares for her daughter's arranged marriage, but is informed by Te Kaloma, her childhood crush, kind of her teenage boyfriend, but they're friends in adulthood, that his financial investments have turned sour as a result of their dealings, and implies he is considering selling her out to the Empire. Oh, dude. Vel Sartha asks Luthen, Vel being her cousin, asks Luthen for information regarding the whereabouts of her partner and fellow rebel Sintikaz, but he claims to have no knowledge. Orson Krennic, that's me when I got the costume on, oversees a secret meeting of Imperial officers about forcibly mining the resources on the planet Gorman due to its heavy concentration of a rare mineral. An initiative with Dedra Miro is reluctantly assigned. The conflict between Mai-Pei insurgents reaches a boiling point, and several members are shot and killed as Cassian is taken hostage. Great first segment. Holy cow.
Holy. Yeah, this... I had a lot of complaints about season 1 and its snail pacing and the, not getting to any kind of interesting action. Not that everything needs to be boom, bang, boom kind of action, but like I didn't really think Andor season 1 moved at a pace that kept me interested. Holy tap dancing Wookiees, this one grabbed me from the start, and just like he's stealing an awesome TIE fighter. There's some crazy stuff going on. You're instantly kind of drawn back into these characters. Like you said, it has some just in your face allegories to real life, the world that we're living in.
Oh my God.
Specifically America. Holy. It's, this one was hitting on all cylinders.
No doubt about it. Do we want to crank forward, do the summaries, and then do the bigger
let's talk about these as a whole. So let's go through the summaries.
All right, that sounds good. And we'll dabble in between. So I'm going to struggle with the name of episode 2. This is Sagronatima, I think.
Nailed it.
Ariel Kleinman is back doing the directing. Tony Gilroy again. Actually, they handled all 3 episodes, that team. On the jungle planet, Cassian is held prisoner while the conflict amongst the Maya Pei Brigade, or some called them the what they call them, the Lost Boys, or the animal, basically the animal farm. Worsens, and the group splits into 2 factions at a stalemate. They're all idiots. I mean, my God. On Mina Rao, Imperial officers arrive and audit all the workers' papers as Bix Brasso and Will arrange to move to a different part of the planet to avoid discovery. On Coruscant, Dedra and Cyril, now living together as a couple. What can you even imagine? There's an even greater scene in the second arc that touches on this that I absolutely adore. Prepare for a social event they have been putting off. As preparations for Lida's wedding continue, that's Mon's daughter, Mon Mothma discusses the possibility of Te Kaloma's defection with Luthen, who says they should attempt to ascertain Kaloma's price for keeping silent about the rebellion. Cassian slips away from his captors when they become distracted with the territorial challenge and flees the planet, revealed to be Yavin 4 as he flies away in his stolen TIE Avenger, and I found that to be particularly like, is that really it?
Mhm.
But yeah, we did. They do. There does tend to be a bit with a big jungle monster that probably makes probably they have to deal with later on. We'll find out. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
interesting stuff.
you
I
got it.
I think I'm just gonna put this in this part right now instead of talking about it later. I might even bring it up later. I think Cyril lying on the bed is one of the funniest things to happen in Star Wars in years. So good.
Dedra as your girlfriend. I mean, I've had some scary girlfriends who had some scary wives, two ex-wives in particular. Um, I would put Dedra right up there against either one of my ex-wives as far as terms as pure evil and terror, without a doubt. I would not want to, and I've had scary mother-in-laws too. But I've never had one that could take down the other. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was just it was that was really something. So that was a very satisfying exchange. But we will circle
Yeah.
back.
It was.
All right,
Yeah.
episode 3 is Harvest. Cassian makes contact with Clea Markey and is able to ascertain the danger his friends are in. Around. Clea, the one that people who are idiots keep saying, "Do you think that's really Princess Leia?" Like, it's like, oh my god. Some people should not be allowed the privilege of the internet, or just speaking, or watching television. Dedra and Cyril host Cyril's mother. It's almost Edie. Does she go by Edie? I've
Edie.
never heard her name spoken. So
Yeah, I think
for
so.
dinner, during which Edie repeatedly belittles Cyril, prompting Dedra to forcibly establish limitations on his mother, almost like she's establishing dominance. It's a pissing match.
So good.
Yeah. Oh my God. On
Yeah.
Chandrilla, Lita is married to Stecken Skulden as arranged, and the ceremony is followed by the most danciest reception that will ever be forward and backwards in Star Wars. It was absolutely fantastic. As the Ferris expats prepare to leave Mina Rao, Imperial officer Lieutenant Kroll, God, great name, attempts to Bix. Sorry to use the word, but she is killed. You'll have to bleep that out on YouTube, I suppose. So I'll avoid using that word again.
Yeah.
But she kills him after a bloody altercation. As the conflict spirals further, Brasso is killed by a stormtrooper. That actually happens at the end, so not a great part of the summary. You're not keeping me in suspense, summary. But Cassian arrives in the TIE fighter and kills the Imperial troops from the air. Cassian, Bix, and Will flee on the TIE Avenger. Having been unable to come up with a price to ensure Tay Kaloma's silence, Luthen informs Mon Mothma that he has decided to have him killed. Mothma distressingly drinks and dances while Vel watches Kaloma get taken away in a fancy limousine by Cinta, never to be seen again.
Yeah, we're not seeing that guy again. That's for sure.
Very there was definitely a lot of exciting moments in the first 2 episodes, but that third episode was a gut punch, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Absolutely. And more, I think, akin to the tone that we were used to from season 1, maybe a little bit more serious, a little bit more heady, a little bit more. Some of this could go over people's heads. I'm specifically thinking about the dance scene when,
Right.
What is Mon Mothma doing kind of thing. And people have been picking that apart endlessly, and a lot of people not getting.
Watch me dance, everyone.
It's part her acting,
right,
part her putting on the show that she and Luthen need to put on, part she's just kind of dancing the troubles away, part catharsis. There's a whole lot going on in that dance scene, and some people are just like, who dances in Star Wars? But yeah, like I said, Cyril, and it was this episode, not the second one. I think I got that wrong, but Cyril laying on the bed was just
it was. That was his
phenomenal.
I'm going to leave the room for a minute because he just cannot take it. He just cannot even with his mother anymore. So he has to go have some quiet time.
And unscripted.
Oh, really? Okay.
Unscripted. Saw an interview with the actors, and they said they had their scene, and the director asked Cyril's actor, like, what, you have to leave, what would you go do? And I guess he just kind of like went in the bedroom and did this awkward laying down where he was still stiff and
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like hanging off in like a weird angle and just still perfectly stiff as a board and
Right.
awkward. And it was just beautifully hilarious in
Yeah.
this little ad-libbed, non-scripted scene that just shows like that actor is so dialed into that character in the most serious way that is also hilarious. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
very much enjoyed that scene.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Um,
let's break it down.
let's jump in. So I guess first off, first 3 episodes, what were your thoughts and expectations coming into this season? Right off the top, I already mentioned here that I was not a huge fan of Andor season 1. I thought by the end of it, as a collection, as a whole, there were some good bits in the season, but I thought it could have been whittled down to maybe half of the episodes. A
Yeah.
lot could have been cut out, a lot could have been sped up. It just didn't. I thought it moved at a snail's pace. So I was kind of sour going into this, kind of not expecting much different, which I understand why people love the first season. I understand why people love Andor and want more seriousness in Star Wars, but that for me is not why I gravitate towards Star Wars. There are other
Yeah.
things that I watch when I want seriousness, and
Yeah.
then there's Star Wars that I want when I want my space fantasy adventure, escapism. Um, and this one can get a little headier than I tend to want my Star Wars. And I
Yeah.
love that this Young Jedi Adventures, the video games, the crazy characters, all the zany stuff that you can get, it all happens in the same canon universe. And I love that.
Right.
Um, but I didn't have super high expectations. And I have to say, these 3 episodes, especially like I said, that first episode, kicking it into high gear, doing a undercover heist with that awesome TIE pilot suit and the
Oh,
amazing TIE fighter.
I gotta have one. The
And
suit.
yeah, now he did say the suit was incredibly uncomfortable. So if you're doing a perfect
I
recreation,
I
just
know
be ready for that.
I definitely with the flight suit I did a size up because I think
Mm,
I returned it and
yeah.
got a different one because I went with Wampaware, which is a domestic company that does a
Mm,
very very nice job. Not that I'm plugging them, but if you're ever looking for that kind of gear, I think that's the place you want to go. If you're ever
yeah.
looking for basically a flight suit, a Star Wars jumpsuit, but
Yeah.
I'm with you with part of that. I was not at all impressed by Andor season 1, the first 3 episodes, and this dropped not in quite as a methodical fashion. I think the first 3 episodes dropped back in season 1 at the same time, and then at the end of it, I was
Mm,
kind of like, eh. Like
yeah.
one thing happened that you could be interested in,
Hmm.
and then yeah, because it went from that, and then it went to Cassian is gonna be on a job, and then it was the the guy who got crushed by all the bricks and he said I have a manifesto, and then
Yeah.
Cassian got interested, and it was just a weird way to get to the end of everything, where with this we're in our May the 4th movie viewing choice, which April picked after we got home from the bar trivia last night, was Rogue One, because we're just really into
Mm,
this right now. And but yeah, this throws us right into the mix of my peak Star Wars, which is the admittedly non-Jedi, non-fantastical rebellion part of everything. I
mhm.
love, you'll see it all over my house and all over Articles clothing. I love the Rebel Alliance. That is my Star Wars for me. So this is it, and we're still just keying up to the point where the Rebel Alliance is going to come out of the closet, as it were, and be this open, galaxy wide theme. Because you got to remember, in
Mhm.
continuity, when we get into the next not we're going to get block 2 is what we're going to talk about in our next episode, but block
Yeah.
3 is what drops on TV tomorrow as we're recording this, so in the first week of May.
Mhm.
And I'm getting the feeling we're going to be more fully, like I said, out of the closet, more military action, more people
Kind of has
joining
to
up.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that we're going to see us on Yavin, or that might end up being that last block where BB. I was going to say BB-8 shows up. Who's his K2SO? His buddy shows up
Yeah.
because we know
Yeah.
he's a part of things as well. So
Mhm.
I'm loving this fever pitch, but much like with Rogue One, where you're like, why haven't we ever seen any of these characters before? Everybody bites it at the end. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily get the feeling that anybody besides Cassian and Mon are even going to be around by the time the show is over. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not like they're going to be like, "Oh, Cassian, we have to leave you. We're going to go live on Dagobah with Yoda or something." It's not likely to look good that anybody's going to make it. So I love that fragility. I love not knowing what to expect from one to the next. So you're right. This has maybe taken some lessons from feedback or overall vibe of what was being
Mhm.
felt about that first season, and has just turned it up to 11, and we're doing something really serious here. So it
Yeah.
is meeting expectations as the ratings go. So I'm fired up. So big
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
big big
Definitely.
big big hit, like you said. Pacing, that whatever it is they needed to figure out, it seems like they figured it out,
I
because
agree. Yeah.
things are going along. I did admittedly feel like the whole Animal Farm, Lost Boys
The Lord of
tribe
the
thing,
Flies kind of. Yeah.
yeah, was kind of like, oh, okay, well, maybe you could play this for half an episode, but it was an episode and a
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
Where
I agree with that.
they could have just skipped it and done something else with Cassian during that time. So I probably could have done without that. And again,
Mhm.
it's not like, oh, this is what we needed to set up Yavin 4 is being nothing that they did made you feel like they established Yavin 4 in any way, shape, or form. But it does really,
Yeah.
the whole thing seems to underscore how the rebellion is just kind of a silly mess.
Mhm.
And it's reflected in one of the episodes in the next arc that Saw Gerrera is out doing his thing, and his partisans are hardcore, but they're still not all powerful. They're on the run.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's interesting to see that there is no alliance part of the rebellion. They're just out there rebelling.
And that's,
Yeah,
I think, going to be a key point of this is bringing the alliance part into the
yeah,
rebellion.
yeah,
Because right now we are seeing, and they've focused. So in these episodes are all like, year chunks. So the first
right.
3 episodes are a year later. The next one, the 4 does another year time jump. And I think they're purposefully showing like these guys on Yavin are a bunch of idiots who are
Yep.
infighting. They can't fight the Empire because they're busy fighting themselves over stupid things like, oh, he looked at me the wrong way, instead of
Yeah.
being like, hey,
It's not,
maybe
yeah.
Sidious is killing the galaxy.
Right.
Fucking focus.
Yeah, but
Uh,
we're
you
rebels and we
know,
got guns and we got
like,
they're
right.
even they're even dressed like, like Lost Boys, an
Yeah.
oversized hat or a dumb looking
Yeah.
jacket. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they've got to fight the wild boar. It reminds me of that episode of The Simpsons where the school bus goes over the cliff and they all get stuck on the island, and there's the
Yeah.
wild boar
That's the
that
Lord
eats
of the
all their
Flies.
yeah, that eats all the Lord of the Flies. I was going around saying Animal Farm and Lost Boys when it was Lord
Mm.
of the Flies. I wanted to say, yeah, it was the wild boar that ate all the. They thought it was the wild boar that ate all their snacks, but it was Millhouse the whole time.
Yeah.
Millhouse and Martin the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, everything comes
You can
back to
lick
the
the
Simpsons.
rocks.
You can
The
lick.
rocks have algae on them. Fantastic. The cuts to
Oh,
her licking the rocks, Lisa licking the
yeah,
rocks, and everyone else is
yeah,
eating the wild boar.
yeah. There you go.
Fantastic.
She's like,
Um,
shut up.
yeah, and I think so. Jumping ahead, I know we're not going to talk about the next, but like you said already, Saw Gerrera is in the next one, and they're not associated with anyone. They're still almost pirate, rebellious,
Right.
renegades kind of thing. Like someone at some point, and I think really soon, because we're gearing up to the end of this season being essentially leading in directly to Rogue One,
The exact
which
moment, like.
leads.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Cassian on the Ring of Kafrine walking into that room with the
Yeah.
guy with his arm in a sling saying, well, I was just
Yeah.
going to leave. And then that'll be the end of the show.
Which leads within, I think, 30 minutes, they've said, or a couple of hours into episode 4. So at some point, I'm guessing maybe tomorrow, because it seems like the Rebel Alliance has a couple of years built up before episode 4.
Right.
Like they seem to have their shit together. They can't do that
Right.
without a
Like,
couple
yeah,
of
right.
years of like someone's Mon, Luthen,
Right.
someone's bringing them together and saying, this has to be an alliance. This is what we're doing. We need the Mon Calamari. Also, one thing that pissed me off about these first 3 episodes is the severe lack of aliens
Yeah,
in a
we
Star
got
Wars thing.
we got
And
one
like,
in the shops when Clea was talking to like a
yeah.
big dude with
Um,
tendrils or something.
and I think part of the Rebel Alliance is an alliance of all species
Right.
and
Which the
planets that
Empire is
are
the opposite.
fighting
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Empire that are very, very human centric. So I did kind of glaringly find that a
Yeah.
weird omission
Right.
um, in these. But anyway, we did see a good diversity with Saw, so I can't
Right.
complain too much about the next bit. But I did notice it in these 3, and it was a complaint that I was ready to go until I saw the
Right.
next chunk of episodes, and they kind of made
Yeah.
up for that.
Kind of
So
course corrected it.
weird
Yeah,
choice to start
exactly.
us off. But anyway, but like I was super impressed with these episodes, but I'm expecting the first 2 chunks to focus so much on how disjointed the rebels are that
Yeah.
I think the next 1 or 2, definitely seeing it before the finale, is
Yeah.
going to be bringing that into the alliance and then
Right.
building the alliance up to fight the Empire, because they have to be ready to go by the end of this thing.
Yeah, if you think about it, the way that I believe it, you'd have to cross reference your Wikipedia to be sure. The third chunk, which is what we're watching tomorrow or watching this week, is taking place at the same time that Rebels ends, same year, 1 year BBY, where the fourth chunk is weeks, days, months leading up to BBY. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's within Rebels that Mon finally defects to the rebellion and leaves the Empire behind. That happens
Yeah.
within Rebels. So I'm guessing by the time we get to what we're watching this week, Mon won't be a part of the Senate anymore. She'll be on the run.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious how that's all going to shake out. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting.
fascinating stuff. So yeah, hit the ground running, kept things moving. That third episode, with the assault that happens to Bix,
Yeah.
is chilling.
I did
And
want to touch on
yeah,
that.
please.
There's been so much discussion about this, and a lot of the usual grifters and complainers and people saying that there's no need for an essay scene. I don't want to get tagged on YouTube or Instagram or anything else, so I'll say essay. You know what I mean? But 2 white guys talking about this, probably not important for our opinions. So I'm going to go directly to the source. Adria Arjona plays Bix. She has addressed this. There is a bigger interview. I think Vulture is where this quote came from, but she's done a couple of interviews, a couple of different things. Her exact quote, I want to read this word for word. It's not really important whether it was controversial or not. If we're showing all parts of history, then you've got to show that part. She says the R word. I'm going to say SA and abuse of power lives in our world
Oh
and
yeah,
also lives in the galaxy far, far away. It's sad, but it's important. Listen to that last part. It's sad, but it's important. If you think that the Empire is above SA or abuse of power or any of that kind of stuff, you're on the wrong side.
yeah, yeah,
They're
absolutely.
not. And I want to say from my standpoint, I would not be surprised if we saw this coming from Rebels too, especially the disjointed Rebels. Anytime you have any sort of power over someone else or anything like
Hmm.
that, this kind of behavior can pop up. And it happens with the good guys and it happens with the bad guys, because even in a group of good guys, you're going to have bad guys
Oh yeah,
that think they're good. So the fact that it was an Imperial going after a rebel makes sense for the show. Establishes that the Imperials at this point think they can go in anywhere, think they are all powerful, think that everyone's going to bend to their will, quite literally in this sense. But it wouldn't. I don't think the way they've shown these, like the disjointed rebels, the power struggles, all that kind of stuff, wouldn't surprise me if they throw something in there on the rebel side as well, or they could. I don't think it'd be out of place. But I think addressing that, if you want a serious Star Wars show that reflects both the world that we know, and we'll see that in the next chunk a lot, like a lot centered around the French resistance during World War II. In the next chunk, we can talk about that next week or 2 weeks from now or whatever. But there are those kind of similarities and allegories to the real world. And this is a thing, like she said, that happens in the real world. It happens in history. It happens through all parts of history, and it happens right now in the real world. And it sucks, but if you're going to do a serious Star Wars show that centers on real world problems and real world struggles, then that's an ugly bit of reality that you have to face.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad that they did it. I'm glad that they threw that in there. If this is going to be the serious Star Wars show, let them tackle that kind of stuff.
And I'll tell you
what. Other shows do space wizards with laser swords, and this one can be the one to tackle that kind of stuff.
This gives me the chance this late in the show to jump in. It's one of the most Star Trek moves they've ever made, because Star Trek takes a fantastical setting, space, living on a ship, traveling the stars, and reflects back on humanity. I mean, George Lucas, this was one of our questions in trivia last night. Inspirations for the original Star Wars: the corruption of the Nixon administration, America's war in Vietnam, amongst other things. Gene Roddenberry looked at the war in Vietnam, and he made an episode of the original Star Trek about it called A Private Little War, that had to do with, upsetting the balance of power by giving weapons to one group so that they don't get overwhelmed by another group. It's just, they had an episode of the original show where there was a race that warred because one half of them was black on the right side and white on the left side, and the other side was reversed, and they hated each other for it and it ended up destroying their entire planet. Humanity.
Humanity. Does,
yeah, exactly. So that's what this was. And again, this was filmed a few years ago because of the strike, so it's not absolutely what's going on in the United States right now. And I think if you're listening to the sound of my voice, we probably have somewhat similar feelings about the peril that our nation is facing right now. And I'm sure others in the world, such as Mark up there in Canada, and listeners that we have all over the world, know that there are good people here in the United States that don't want to live in tyranny. So it's particularly telling right now. I rebel. I'm right up there with the rebels. I will tell you that right now. You have to fight the darkness, and that's what this is showing us, and doing it in a way that I think is fantastic.
It is crazy how blunt they have to be with this, and some people still aren't getting it. Because you see MAGA hat Star Wars fans that are just not getting it. How much, in your face you have to get. They're talking about illegals. They're talking about visas. They're talking about, like undocumented workers and this kind of stuff. And it's like, it doesn't matter when this was filmed. Doesn't matter at all if this was intentional or not,
because
this shit's happening, and it's not in a galaxy far, far away.
It's a timeless topic. It has always existed, and I hate to say that in some form or another, it always will. Just hopefully less and less and less of it as time goes by.
Even allegories with Andor season 1, the Imperials throwing him into a prison without due process, shipping him off somewhere where nobody knows exactly where he is or if he'll be coming back, without any due process, just because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
If I have to explain that one to you, No, yeah, I don't,
I
I don't know what else to tell
it,
you.
if you need it
Figure it
explained,
out.
yeah, if you need
Take
it
off the
explained,
red hat
yeah.
and read a book.
Yeah, if you
Um,
need it explained to you, I don't think you'll ever be able to understand it.
yeah,
But yes,
no,
but we digress.
that's it. That's it.
The
So
point is made.
that's so let's wrap this up. I think we've gotten a little worked up, as we probably should, because
You
this
got
is a
to.
serious show about some
You better
serious
believe
shit,
it.
and there's some serious shit happening in the world. Um,
Absolutely.
I already talked about Cyril's moment being hilarious. We talked about the TIE fighter being just epic and that first opening scene. Any other scenes, characters, moments, bits in this that just kind of stood out as either hilarious, epic, peak Star Wars in these three things? We talked about the dance scene a little bit. I thought that was
Yeah,
great. That song's been
yeah,
stuck in my head for weeks.
yeah. The culture on Chandrilla, I think, is fascinating because it's very egalitarian. It's
Mm-hmm.
very Victorian in its kind of conduct, but they still love house music and get crazy and get wasted. My
Oh yeah,
God, holy crap. They're
yeah.
like, you watch Mon, she's doing shots, and she's like, that was, like I said, this is coloring so far outside of those Star Wars lines of, like you said, laser swords and stormtroopers. But throughout these three episodes, we have these three webs of the story. What's Andor doing? What's his crew doing? What's going on with Mon? That it's all racing towards this fever point, where it's come to a point where they're all going to be together, and some of them won't live that long. But they're going to be, yeah, they're going to be, coming together to square it all away. It was a tough one for Mon. She's given up a guy she really cares for, but he's also given her up because he's kind of a scumbag.
Yeah.
So you feel, but you don't feel. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
For her, not even a sacrifice because she doesn't make the decision. But yeah, there's just a lot of very intense stuff going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, just can't wait. Can't wait to see what comes next. My goodness,
Yeah.
tomorrow, and when we return in 2 weeks to talk about segment 2 of 4 of where this is all going. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
good stuff.
Yeah, sadly, with the release schedule, we are going to be a little bit behind talking about this, but we'll get through all of. I think we're going to do it in 3 episode chunks, or at least the time junk chunks
Yeah,
that come out. As long as they make sense together, we'll see how the later bit of the season goes. We might have to tackle it 1 or 2 episodes at a time,
right.
but I think we have the time, and I personally would rather give this show the time and
The
break it
space.
down in a way that
Yeah,
makes sense. And Charlie and
yeah,
I have talked about that behind the scenes a couple of times of like, should we do 2 episode chunks? Does it make more sense to do 3? And this is what we've settled on for now, as
right,
long as it makes sense. So for
right.
this and next week, this makes sense. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see what happens the next week. But hopefully you'll be along for the ride with us.
Yes, please.
Charlie, I think that kind of wraps it up for right now. So why don't
I,
we tell people where they can follow
I
us
think
and maybe
so.
tell us their thoughts on the show?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to. This is such a big topic. I would love for you to connect with us. Of course, I can be found on what I consider to be the main socials, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. I am at the C3, THECEE. Excuse me.
Practicing that
THECEETH.
Shrilo.
Yeah. THREE, so that's the C3. But both Mark and I are very active on our Secret Friends Unite Discord, which is a free to join server. Great place to talk about a number of different topics. We have like 5 different spoiler threads locked down right now. Thunderbolts,
I know.
Andor, the other what the hell's the other big show that's going on right now that we're all enjoying? I don't remember. Soon it'll be Superman, Fantastic
Something.
Four.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. This.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
coming. But yeah, if you can't find us on Discord, ping one of us on socials. We'll send you an invite and we'll get you joined up because that's where we like to do stuff. Mark, what about you?
Yeah. You can find me, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Canardian_Jedi, except Blue Sky. I think it's a dot or anyway, it's all in the show notes. Find me there. But yeah, the place to discuss this kind of stuff, there's, like Charlie said, there's a Star Wars thread and a spoiler thread for Andor, for all of, Thunderbolts, The Last of Us, all the kind of
Last of
stuff that
Us.
you want to get into. And then there's just general chat that we try to keep
Right.
kind of non-spoilery for a few
Right.
days and then just move things there. So there's always
Right.
great stuff. I've been really enjoying the video game discourse lately in there, aside from the Star Wars stuff. So there's a little bit for everyone. So join our
Right.
Discord.
Love to have you there.
Like I said, the links in the show notes. But if you miss that, DM one of us. We'll get
Yep.
you in.
We got you covered.
Always,
Well, all right.
always love seeing more people join.
Good deal. All right. Well, with that, friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
May the force be with you. Rex, play us out.